Hey everyone, welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. And yes, I'm still reading that introduction off my cheat sheet. I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here today with Joe Lalo and Jeff Poole. And we may have Laura Kerwin visiting us. She had a couple things she wanted to talk about related to today's episode. She was in the first four shows, you'll probably remember. But we're probably going to have some more guests after the holidays. We've got some people who are possibly interested in chatting with us. But for the next couple of shows, it's just going to be us sort of talking about some things we've learned about as authors along the way over the last 3, 4, 5 years, 4 years, however long it's been now for us. And today's subject is going to be actually maybe seeming like kind of a negative show because we're going to talk about basically some of the things we've done wrong, some of the things we've kind of learned, regrets in the process, in the hopes that if you're listening and at an earlier stage, maybe you won't make some of the same mistakes that we have. So
We've had some doozies.
so then you'll think too that it's possible that you too can maybe one day do this for a living, even if you totally goober everything up like we have at times. So I think we compared notes a little bit at the beginning, and we all kind of had some issues finding editors early on that worked well. So I'm just going to throw my experience out and then let the other guys talk a little bit about their experiences too. And we're going to kind of go around in the circle and each share our issues and each discuss them. So hopefully you'll get something out of that. So first thing for me on the topic of editors, back when, I guess this was in November 2010, I was getting my first book ready to self-publish. Didn't have a whole lot of money to spend like many people. And so I was trying to find somebody on the cheap, and I was on the K-boards, Kindle boards, it was back then, just asking for recommendations. And somebody came on my post and said, I'm an English teacher. I would love to edit your novel. And I think I paid him $200, and my mistake was, there were many, but I paid him up front. I did not ask for a sample edit, which I highly recommend that you do now before you sign on with anybody. Most professional editors have no problem. They might charge a few dollars, but you'll get it back if you sign a contract with them. But have somebody go over the first chapter and just see what their editing style is, and if you agree, and if it's good stuff. Because this guy went through my whole manuscript, and he changed a lot of weird stuff that didn't need to be changed. This had been past beta readers through a workshop and was mostly grammatically correct except for typos and a few issues. And he went in and changed in every dialogue tag. He put a semicolon instead of a comma, and it was weird. I've beta read for people in Australia and the UK, and I have never seen this style of punctuating dialogue. So he wasted his time going through the whole manuscript doing that, and he did some other stuff too. But I just saw that I'm like, there's no way I can even use this edit. This is ridiculous. I'd have to change it all back. So that was my first experience. I did not get my $200 back, even though I'm a pretty laid back person, and I don't usually snap at people. I just say, okay, life lesson learned. But
Did you actually
boy,
take the time to change everything back? Pretty much undo everything he did?
no, I said nothing here. This is worthless. So I was like, I'm gonna have to go pay for another editor. And after that, I paid a little more, and I found somebody who actually had a website and was doing technical editing. So, and I did have them do a sample first few pages before I committed to anything. And I'm glad that it's one of those things when you actually find a good editor, you should definitely keep that person, pay them whatever they want, and continue on and have a good relationship with them, because it's worth it just to find somebody you mesh with and that kind of learns what you will and will not change based on their recommendations. Because I can be a little bit of a pest. I do very casual dialogue that's not always grammatically correct, and I want somebody that gets it and isn't always going to insist on putting the right whom in there or ending not with a preposition. But yeah, tell me about
Guilty.
you guys.
Yeah, well, see, I couldn't agree more when it comes to the editing is get a sample first, see if what they do. You agree with what they do, and if you like it, and if you agree on the price, great. For people just starting out, it's like when they're getting ready to release their first book, when I first released mine, here comes my error. When I first released mine, I was like, you know what? I'm a smart guy. I can figure this out myself. I'll go ahead and self-publish it. So I went through that book with a fine-tooth comb, figuring that, okay, everything's good, grammar's correct, Word, which is what I was using to type it, MS Word, I didn't have any green squiggly lines. I took care of all those stupid lines that made their suggestions, made sure the thing was happy, and I released it. And what I will recommend here is don't try and self edit yourself, even though if you think you can do it, give it to somebody. I wouldn't even say it's a friend or whatnot, but unless you have a friend that they have no problems telling you what they honestly feel, because if you try and give it to a family member or friend just to help for another set of eyes looking at it, they're going to be polite, they're going to be nice, they're not going to want to hurt your feelings. So usually what I ended up having to do is I found someone that was pretty much the same boat as I was. They're an indie author. And hi, Lindsay. Or, I mean, sorry, hi, Laura. And
Hi.
anyways, I traded reviews for it. I told this person that I'd be willing to read their book and kind of go through it if they'd be willing to do the same for mine. And so at least I had another unbiased opinion where this person would say, you know what, okay, well, you've got some issues here. I wouldn't recommend you do this, or I wouldn't recommend you do that. And I was like, okay, well, I also see this and that. This is what I would say about your books. I mean, it worked out well to the point where I actually even got a review off the book that way. I was like, okay, I can, and it leads into something else that I've got there. But just with my own personal editing here is, my point is if you're just starting out, you don't have a budget to do anything like that, then what I would recommend is just like say, get somebody else, another set of eyes, as many eyes as possible, to look at it and ask around, just like Lindsay was saying there. If someone says that, hey, they've got a really good, strong background in English, I was like, hey, would you be willing to go through the book and tell me what you think about it? Now, when I get it released in print, I'll even send you a copy of it. I mean, just make it sound enticing for them. I mean, you never know. And usually these people, say, okay, well, try and give it a try. But yeah, my first editor that I had there, I same sort of thing. I found her online, and she actually did a pretty decent job there, but to the point where she was correcting all kinds of stuff that it was the same thing. It's like, okay, well, I realize you're not supposed to end a sentence with a preposition, but darn it, this is how this person talks, so this is how I'm going to do it anyways. And we butted heads over a few things, but now I've got a person over in England that does a really, really good job. And Derek, if you're watching, this is for you, bud. Thank you. And he does a really good job, and I can't thank him enough. So once you find a really good editor, keep him or her, as the case may be, and do what you can to keep them happy, and hopefully the relationship continues and you can keep them doing good work.
Yeah, I likewise. I have to say that having a good editor and hanging on to them once you find them is something you absolutely have to do. I released my first 3 books without any professional editing at all, or even unprofessional editing. The first book I put out, I was the only person who had edited it, and that's a spectacular idea. Everyone should do that because it works perfectly. Not at all. My first reviews were somewhat harsh. I mean, I was getting some 4-star reviews that were telling me that it would have been 5 if it was properly edited, but I was also getting 2-star reviews that were saying I took off 2 stars because this guy's editing is atrocious. So I had given it to my friends to read as well, but none of my friends are English majors, so they wouldn't know any of the nuances. And frankly, I'm very, very good at putting in insidious errors that nobody can catch. I've slipped stuff past professional editors. So I eventually got professional editors, and my average score jumped up an entire star on those once I edited the first 3 books. I've been through 2 editors now, not because the first one did anything wrong. In fact, she volunteered a sample edit. I did not even know such a thing you could ask for. And she was like, I'll do the first chapter for you so you can see if you agree. And it just so happens the first chapter, because it was the first chapter and I had read that chapter a couple of dozen times, there weren't a whole lot of errors in it, so she didn't have a whole lot of editing to do. But yeah, so I've gone through 2 editors, and I love them both. They both did fantastic jobs. I've moved to a second one just because we have been. She's also an author. We sort of traded some favors a little early on, and we were both sort of bunched together in the same group. Like it was one of those Amazon sent out, and if you like that, you'll like this email, and she was in it. So I moved over to her just because we were more peers. But absolutely having a good editor is necessary, and never edit anything yourself. You should edit everything yourself, but only as the first set of eyes. And then everyone you know, if you can get them to read it, get them to read it. Just you would never believe. Again, I didn't find out until my editor got her hands on it that the word prophecy has 2 forms and they're spelled differently, and I had exactly the opposite intuition necessary to use them correctly. And also, I had the whole problem with rain. Not rain as in things coming down on the roof, but I mean rain as in reins of a horse versus reign of a kingdom. I use those exactly opposite every time. So I recently tweeted a sentence that used both word. I think that everybody in an entire kingdom hands over the rulership of their of their individual areas. Then they are handing over both the reins of the kingdom and the reigns of the kingdom. I think they're doing it both ways, and you can use either version, and it's fine. I will construct editing conundrums like that. So, absolutely, I have to agree that editing is necessary, and it's a mistake not to have at least a few sets of eyes, if not a few sets of professional eyes, looking at your stuff. And Laura, do you have anything on the subject of editing to add? Oh.
She might have frozen up there.
We can see you, Laura. We can't hear you.
She's not moving on my screen either. So.
Well, she's moving on my screen, but I can't hear her.
Oh.
I see her waving, but yeah, I can't hear her.
I don't even get that. Do you want to try going back out and coming back in, Laura? We heard you when you first came in. But yeah, in the meantime.
Well, if we want, we can move on and catch up with her when she comes back. So you're up, I guess, Lindsay.
All right. I'll go again since I know we all had some issues also with cover art. So this has actually been kind of an ongoing struggle for me to find somebody that does a really good job, that helps me make covers that are really representative of the genre. That's kind of where I've had trouble. Like, it's not necessarily that my covers were bad covers or unprofessional for the most part, but they weren't always like, you can always look at them and say, oh, obviously that's steampunk, or obviously that's epic fantasy. And I still have my Emperor's Edge series is all yellow covers, and somebody told me it looks like historical Indian fiction. Like, oh, good. That's what I was going for. But so it's kind of
like those covers.
I just, I feel like they don't necessarily say epic fantasy, and I don't think
they're cryptic though. If someone looks at that cover and goes, "Huh, okay, is this steampunk? Is this fantasy?" It leads to the intrigue on what it's about.
Is it historical India 17th century fiction? Maybe. But so I think one thing I've found is that I personally don't really have a very good eye for design. So I've found that the more I try to, micromanage the designer, and say like, oh, I have this scene from the novel that would be perfect if you could, somehow get that in there, or, maybe here's some symbols that were imported in the book. Since in the last year I've had some really good covers done, and I cannot even tell you how much easier it is to sell the books with good covers that are really say what your genre is, because I've had a couple good ones. Torrent, if you want to check it out, it's my urban fantasy, and Balance on the Blade's Edge is steampunk, and those covers just made it so much easier to sell the books, even though they were jumping into new series, and I didn't necessarily have everybody who was going to cross over and follow them. So that was definitely a big help, and I found, like I was saying, that sometimes just if I say like, oh, it's steampunk, and there's World War I kind of airplanes, and yep, there's a man and a woman, and it's kind of a romance. And just leave it at that, and kind of leave it up to the designer's ideas. That I've been getting much better covers since I've just been really just give them a couple things, overview things, and then, sometimes they'll have questions or that kind of thing. But if I'm get real specific, it may look really cool in my mind, but it's really the other person can't see it the same way. And if you get too detailed on the covers, that can be hard too. It just doesn't end up looking as good as something really simple. But I probably have more to say on that. But let me let you guys jump in. And welcome back again, Laura.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay, yeah, I had the mute on because I'm an idiot. So, it just takes me a while to figure this stuff out. So, so I was just going to pop in and talk about my biggest mistake, because I have to go back and finish the dishes here in a little while. So. Well, I actually asked Lindsay if I could pop in here quick. Because in my interview I talked a lot about what a good experience I had with CreateSpace, and I would like to retract all favorable things I have said about CreateSpace because my God, it's been an ordeal. My first book, they were really good. I mean, there were things that kind of bugged me about it. It's a very bureaucratic, kind of cumbersome, non-flexible process, but with not knowing what I was doing, it was actually really helpful to be kind of shoved along, you know, you will do this, and then you will do this, and then you will do this. But the second book, I knew even as I started it that I would probably not be using them for the third book, but it was like dealing with a completely different company. And I don't know if I just got off on the wrong foot with the saleswoman when I complained because they wanted to make me pay the full layout and design price for using the exact same design in the second book. But it's like everything that can go wrong has. I was supposed to have the book out by November 15th. The physical book is out, but we're still wrestling with the Kindle formatting. I mean, it's just like it used to be that the first time around they would catch things. You wouldn't have to tell them everything. They would catch things and fix them. And this time it's like they're totally different people than the first time. They're doing the bare minimum they need to push it along to the next step. They've screwed up the interior design, you know, easy. I said, do this, just follow what you did before, and they didn't do it. And they screwed it up 2 times, and the second time I was like, I can't wait any longer. Your process is so slow, I can't fight you on this any longer because I have to get the book out. So my Christmas marketing and post-Christmas marketing plans in terms of using Kindle Countdown and doing a sale have just been completely blasted out of the water. So yeah, I would say that you're better off, even if you're a first time, find someone who's a good cover designer, find authors who put out books you really like, and ask who they use. Kindle formatting is not rocket science, but it's technical enough that I don't want to learn it. I would rather spend the money to have someone else do it. But I think it's really important to be able to have someone that you can pick up and just call and say, hey, this isn't working, can you fix it? Yeah, I'm right on it. Whereas with CreateSpace, for an Amazon company, it was kind of shocking how bad my experience has been this time around. I'm still okay on the printing side so far. You know, I don't know. I haven't gotten the box of books I'm expecting, so maybe they're all upside down and backwards, and the proof looked okay. But I won't use them for the design again. I mean, it was just, and I can't recommend them to anyone for that. I mean, it's
So
just for an
I have a
Amazon.
question for you.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
so you actually purchased one of their editing packages, which covered like the formatting as well as a cover design.
Yeah, I didn't use the editing. I have my own editor. There was no way I was going to use them for that. But what I did when for the first book, I found a lot of people that did formatting and a lot of people that did cover design, but I couldn't find anyone. I was having a hard time finding people who did interior design. And I think at the time, I'm finding a lot more people now. I'm not sure if it was just, you know, as the industry develops, there's more of this. But the interior design is actually a lot more important than people realize. It's not just, you know, picking the correct font, laying it out, getting the, you know, the little fleuron doohickeys. I mean, one of the things that people said with the first book is they opened it and like, oh my God, this looks like something I'd get at a bookstore. It's like, well, yeah, that was the goal. So that's how I ended up with them. So I purchased the cover package and I purchased the interior design package, and I did their Kindle formatting. And one of the reasons I went is that, you know, that age-old conundrum, when you have time, you don't have money, and when you have money, you don't have time. Well, I've got money right now, but I don't have time. So I thought, okay, I'll spend a little extra with them. They're an Amazon company. I know I'll get a good, solid, competent job, and I did the first time around. So, but yeah, that's where the problem. I didn't purchase any of the other editorial services, but I did do the cover, the interior layout and design, and the Kindle formatting. And you can get those services, I've since discovered, quite a bit cheaper and quite a bit better. I looked at Lindsay's designer for the Dragon's Blood. Bounce on a Blade Edge was the cover you just mentioned. Those covers are beautiful. I mean, they're stock images. I unfortunately haven't actually seen that lady with and a couple other book covers, but they're just...
Now you've seen her. I was the first.
Yeah.
Now she's done everything. I'm like,
But
dang, is that the only steampunk woman out there?
But they're, you know, they're beautiful covers. I mean, they're stock image, but you wouldn't know it. I mean, you don't jump out and go, look, there's someone who put a, you know, cover together, you know. and they're just wonderful. And he, the designer, I checked his website out when you sent me his info, and I mean, it's for the cost, for less than what I spent on CreateSpace to get 2 cover designs to choose from and 2 rounds of revisions. From him, you get the cover, the paperbook cover, the ebook cover, the Mobi format, the EPUB format. I think you get like headers and all kinds of cool stuff you can use in your promotion. And I just, after looking at that, I thought, I'm nuts if I keep doing this. And I've identified some formatters who also do interior design as well. And so yeah, it's just, but I just, I had said some nice things about CreateSpace, and I just want to make sure people know that something's going wrong over there. I don't know what it is. The morale has changed, the energy has changed, and definitely the quality of work has changed. So
I've used CreateSpace for every single one of the books, and the only thing I can tell you is I don't ever pack or purchase any of those packages.
Yeah.
I sit and do it myself there. I guess actually, because what you're bringing up is my number 6 here, where I was like, literally my notes I wrote on this was mistakenly believe that it takes serious money to publish a book, because that's what all these companies make you lead you to believe. Like,
yeah, and I didn't spend. Yeah, I mean, I felt the first book I spent, I think, with the editor and buying the ISB. I bought my own ISBNs and some other stuff. It was about $1,600, which I didn't think was unreasonable. Now, for some people I know are operating on much tighter budgets than I am. So, I mean, like I said, I'm in a position right now where I don't have time, but I have money, so I can be like really profligate with stuff and not worry about it. And if I was on a much tighter budget, there's much better options than that. But it's important to separate out the design side from the printing side. And the print-on-demand side, so far, I haven't had any problems with them. And honestly, when I calm down a little bit and I'm not feeling so bitter, I might be like, yeah, fine, I'm staying with them. But right now, I'm looking really hard at Ingram Spark, and the next book we're going to be doing things quite a bit differently. So anyway, but yeah, they're trying to sell professional services the way they sell consumer merchandise, the way you sell objects, and it's just not the same thing. The model that may work great for warehouse management does not work when you're selling professional services. So yeah, that's my biggest mistake.
It makes me wonder, because I thought I heard or I read somewhere that CreateSpace, they say they're offering all these services, like, okay, if you need a cover design, if you need formatting design, whatnot, they don't necessarily have the people on staff to do it, but they have a network of affiliates that they go ahead and pawn your information off on somebody else.
Maybe.
It just makes me wonder. Yeah, it just makes me wonder if you just got
it's weird, because like I said, the first time around I had, I actually was really kind of skeptical about the cover, but the cover designer's like, look, trust me, it's going to work. You're going to be happy with it. Just, this is your first time. And he was really good, and he really talked me kind of off the ledge. And once I got the book home and started really looking at it, I realized I loved it. I loved the first cover. I'm really happy with it. The second one, I really liked the design they came out with the first time around, but I didn't like what they had done to kind of highlight the title. And so I said, look, we'll take that out. I think the red is bright enough that it'll show. Well, it's not. And what the designer should have said is, I know you think it is, but let's try some other things. Instead, they just said, okay, and they just took it out. And so now I've got a cover that I'm going to have to go back and tweak with somebody else, because I'm not spending, excuse me, the money to get them to open the file back up and screw it all up. So, yeah, I mean, it was just, I don't even know if it's mistakes made, but lessons learned. And I think it's really important to find, for those people, you need to find people you like and you trust, and that you can contact easily. CreateSpace is really frustrating in that it's one of those things where there's no one person to call, and you can't call directly. If you call the number they give you on the email they send you, you get the main switchboard, and they want to punch you off to your sales rep, or and then they'll say, well, we'll have set up an appointment for so and so to call you, blah blah, but it's never. There's no voicemail. And so yeah, it's just, it's like, I just want to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. Can I please talk to a human being who is not the person at the front desk who doesn't know what I'm talking about? So yeah, it was a bad experience all the way around.
Okay, now that we're sure to be sued by CreateSpace, and that's Laura Kerwin that you want to contact CreateSpace,
that is
right?
Laura Kerwin's personal opinion, to which I am entitled and to which you cannot sue me, so there.
All right, well, did you want to stick around, Laura, and answer something?
Sure,
do your
I can
dishes,
stick around a little while longer.
All right, Joe and Jeff, did you have any cover issues that you wanted to warn people about too?
I was just the only thing I would mention is when you're doing a cover, if you can. I mean, I realize it takes money to be able to do it, but find someone that is actually really good at making the covers. If you want something that's professional, because when you're shopping for an ebook, at least in my case, when you're looking for an ebook, I probably shouldn't say this. You should don't judge a book by its cover, but a cover plays an important factor when you're flipping through all those hundreds of titles to choose from, hundreds of thousands of titles to choose from. Like on a Kindle or on a Nook or whatnot. Yeah, I'm just looking for something that catches my eye. And there's so many times you can come across a book, you're looking at it going, it's just a generic cover, or else it's something that you can tell that someone tried to Photoshop themselves. It comes through, so it really does. And my own first book there, I might have showed you guys before in a previous episode. I showed you that green cover with that funky looking shield thing. That's something that I was able to do, and it shows. So as soon as I was able to, I found myself a really good illustrator. I think she lives in Louisiana, I think it is, and she does a fantastic job. And I just talked to her a little bit before this episode started, and she's like, "Hey, you ready for me yet for your book 6?" I'm like, yeah, "I've got some ideas." Which I was running by her there, but she does a really good job, and she does everything. She's just an absolute whiz on the computer. She sends me what she calls pencil sketches, kind of like outlines of everything, and says, "How's the placement? How's the size? What do you think?" And she's a breeze to work with. She just asks us, "Okay, well, about this, what about this?" And I was like, "Okay, this is good. It needs to be this needs to be that, and this part over here, get creative, do whatever you want to do here." And we have a good time. So I'm very thankful I found her, and now that I've got her, I'm going to keep a hold of her. And that sounds really bad. And Gillian, my wife, if you're watching, sorry, I didn't mean that the way it came out. So.
And I guess I could toss in on the cover subject too, just briefly. We'll try to do this little show and tell for the people who actually watch the video if this works.
I thought about doing that.
Yeah, my original, when I put my first book up, this is actually my second cover. Let's see if this will show on the camera. That was my second cover. I made that. That's as good as I could possibly do, and it's not terrible. It's just parchment effect. And then the replacement was this, which is basically my entire brand now. Is my
That's so much better.
It's so much better. I agree.
It's such a good cover. It really is a good cover.
The number is triple. Like once the new covers went up for my first 3 books, I sold 3 times as many books the following month, which was enough to pay for the covers. So yeah, like I didn't honestly have the money up front to make the covers up front, but if I'd known how much of an impact it would have, I absolutely would have done the covers. Even if I didn't have the money, I would wait till I had the money to do the covers, because a really professional cover makes a tremendous difference. So get a good cover as soon as you can, and it will.
Yeah, if you don't have the money to get a cover, you wait until you can save up and get a cover, because it
doesn't cost as much as you think.
It really doesn't.
No, it really doesn't.
All right.
Okay, so, yeah, go ahead.
Should we jump into the next subject? I'll go ahead and do mine. I think Joe might be the only one that wanted to chime in on this one, and then I'll let you guys jump in with your own biggest mistakes after that, and we can all talk about them. But one of them actually been like last year after I finished my first main series, The Emperor's Edge. I kind of decided to write a bunch of, I guess you would call them pilots, sort of just, full-length novels in most cases, just to try out the characters. In my case, I was kind of not really sort of jumping genres, because I went from sort of steampunk epic fantasy to contemporary fantasy, and I even did a contemporary mystery / sweet romance novel last year that sold so many copies. I can't even tell you how successful it's been. And then I did a steampunk romance, trying some stuff out, and so I guess it wasn't a bad idea, because my plan was to see which of these kind of gets the most reviews, most sales, has the most feedback from the fans, which should I make into a series. But what I've kind of done to myself is get to the point where I have like 4 series going on at once, and it's really hard to focus on one, because I feel I need to write the next book in each series and keep them coming out fairly regularly. And I think we talked about in the last episode how when I actually did 3 in a row of the steampunk series, and I published them like 2 months apart, I really got some good momentum, and I was really up there in the charts for a while, and the books were kind of selling on their own. And then when I broke away from that to jump into another series, of course those gradually, they were neglected and they fell down in the rankings. And now I'm finally going to have the 4th one ready to go, but it's going to be kind of a challenge to see if I can build it back up there and get the momentum again. I feel like I've started too many series, and even though the pilot idea isn't horrible, what I didn't realize is that even if a book wasn't that successful, there would still be fans that are like waiting for the next one in the series. My poor readers of my Flash Gold, historical, steampunk novellas that I started in 2011, they're still waiting for the final one, and they still let me know by email every couple weeks or so. Somebody's like, "Is the last one coming? Is it coming?" But because it's been so long, it's really hard for me to get motivated to work on it again. I have to go back and reread the other ones. And frankly, because they're novellas, I can never charge as much as novels, so they just don't make a lot of money. So it's hard to get. I mean, I will finish it, but there'll be like one or two series maybe that you want to focus on, but here you've started all these things and have all these obligations. And I would say too that it's hard to really get momentum on a new series until you probably do have 3 books or so out there. So it can be hard to judge just from a pilot anyway. So I don't know if it's a huge mistake. I can't say I've like lost tons of money or anything like that, but it's something going forward. I'm gonna probably try to focus on two maximum series at once, in theory. But love to hear. Yeah, Joe, go for it.
I can second that. Where I have 2 main series, and until I just, again, I just went pro a little while ago, so I haven't had a tremendous amount of time to write until recently. So I would do maybe 2 books a year, and it would be a Nano project, which was a standalone, and then one of the other 2 series. So realistically, people who are a fan of any one series are waiting 2 years for the next book. And all I managed to do was split my audience, where there's half of them were like, well, your next one's going to be sci-fi, right? And then the other half is like, well, your next is going to be fantasy, right? So there has not been like battles between my fans, and there's plenty of people who are fans of it all, but you're always waiting a long time for the next book when you have multiple series. And the Nano projects are essentially all pilots and of potentially their own series. I just did it. I finally took somebody's advice and went with a second book in a previous Nano series. So at least now it's not a third, I guess a fourth new series I might be working on, but it's still split. So now I have 2 main series and 1 secondary series, and that's 3. And again, you're going to be waiting over a year for a new book, even if I'm fairly prolific. So I mean, there's no winning unless you are a fantastically fast writer. There's no win for having 9 or 10 series. There's nothing to it. Either you're going to be spending most of your time working on series that no one's reading, or you're going to be you'll get lucky and people like all of your series, and then most of your audience is going to be disappointed by each new release. So I think focusing on 1 or 2 series is probably a good idea, unless again you are able to spit out a book every month, and then just find your level, because my level is not 4, it's maybe 2.
I can't even comment on that one. I'm only working on 1 series at the moment, and even then, I could release a book, and like less than 2-3 days later, they're like, "Great, when's the next one?" Like, my track record isn't the greatest here. I'm trying to hurry, but you've got a little bit of a wait, man. Speaking of which, Lindsay, I have a question for you. When's that last story of the Flash Gold coming out?
I think you know what I did. You know what I did in the back of the 4th one is I wrote coming in fall. I think people probably meant fall 2014. They assumed that, but I figured if I don't do it, then they're cool. They'll just think it's fall 2015. And so vagueness is the secret.
So now that we got you on video recording where it's uploading to the internet, Lindsay, when are you gonna have this novel done?
Fall. The leaves will be coming off the trees.
And you notice I said novel, not novella. Novel?
It'll actually be pretty long, that last one. There's a lot of stuff to wrap up. See, I do a cliffhanger too. I left the guy getting arrested by the Mounties, so I can understand why people are not too happy. But, yeah, so let's jump to something else, shall we? Jeff, did you want to talk about anything else?
Let's see here. The only thing I will say as well too, and it actually goes a little bit on what Laura was doing, is if you're out about and you're trying to get your book published as the very first time, naturally you're going to be looking for people that are going to offer good deals. Now, I make no qualms about it whatsoever that there is a certain company in Maryland called Publish America that has since changed their name since they've gotten so much bad press to America Star Books. stay away from them like a plague. I mean, then there's other companies out there, smaller companies like this, that all they're looking for is to get you to sign a contract. And just like that, you now sign part of your royalty straight over to them, and they handle supposedly everything free of charge to you. Well, you're signing your life away, you're signing your book away. Do your research. Be diligent in your searching. If you come across some negative reviews, one or two of them, just check to see, talk to them. If you can, email them, find out what's going on with it. But when don't do what I did after reading several hundred negative reviews and like, okay, I'll try them anyways. Don't do it. It's just not worth it.
And I would kind of say, from a legal perspective, I mean, do not pay someone to publish your book if you are giving them your rights. The only reason you should be paying someone is because you're hiring them as a contractor to perform a service and you retain your rights. But if you're giving up your rights, they should be paying you. They should be giving you an advance. They should be giving you something. There should be no money coming out of your pocket. And if it's a company that says, well, pay us this reasonable fee and then we'll, sign the, we'll take the rights to your copyright and boom, run away. They're going to try to steal it from you. Just run away.
Yeah, and this company, this Publish America, when I signed up for them, they said specifically right in the contract that unless you give them notification, like I think it's like a good 4 or 5 months before your contract ends, which was for 7 years, they're going to automatically renew you. And you pretty much, you've already agreeing to this. So unless they get notification from you, and it's one thing when you're thinking about signing up with them, they are on top of communication. They are right there holding your hand the entire same time.
I'm sure they are.
As soon as you sign that contract, you hear the crickets chirping. There is nothing. Trying to get response out of them for help is absolutely insanely ridiculous. So it's only when you have to. I start threatening them, like, man, you need to break my contract out of it, and they instantly fire back. Pursuant to contracts, paragraph 5, line 30, you agreed to this, and have a nice day. And don't bother contacting us again unless you've got a lawyer involved. Like,
yeah, well, that's when you get a lawyer friend with some letterhead to write a nastygram saying, pursuant to the contract, blah, 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 yeah, da, 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 and, you give these rights back immediately or else.
With them, it took me a good solid 1.5 years of daily nagging before they finally went, fine, you shut up, leave us alone, here's your rights back. You can't use our cover, which you've seen the gray, ugly cover. There's no way I'm going to use it. And we'll leave you alone, you leave us alone. I'm like,
the other thing to watch out for is any company that says that in exchange for them doing all these wonderful publishing services for you, you will put the copyright in their name. They'll register it in their name. They register the copyright in their name. That's their book. You waived it. Bye-bye. You're, too bad, so sad. You're going to have a hard time proving that's not your that you didn't convey the copyright to them. So don't ever. It should always be in your personal name. It shouldn't be in the name of your publishing imprint. It should be in your name. So.
Let me ask you guys, because every now and then, we got music.
Yeah, that's my phone telling me there's an email.
So let me ask you, because every now and then I'll get an email from someone who they want to self-publish, but they don't really want to they don't want to personally do all the work of finding a cover artist, finding an editor, finding a formatter. Short of going through one of these companies, because it really doesn't sound like a very good experience all around, what would you recommend? Do they just need to bite the bullet, or should they maybe find like a virtual assistant to spearhead the search, or any ideas for someone like that that's just real busy and doesn't want to do it?
I would have said go to CreateSpace, but
well, so. what I can say is actually, because I actually started, because I'm also a computer tech. I have a client that I pretty much ripped a new one, because she's also a brand new brand new author, and she got duped by a local person here in my town that said, oh yeah, sure, we'll go ahead, I'll help you go ahead and get your books on CreateSpace, get it on Kindle or whatnot. And this guy, for helping assemble, kind of like everyone's messed with CreateSpace, getting everything ready for CreateSpace, is now taking a percentage of her profits. I'm like, why? That is so bad. So I actually started a little side business type of thing, which I don't really get too much hits on it, but every once in a while I'll do. I'd say, if you're an artist, if you have a cover, if you have like the basic interior of your book the way you want it to be, then essentially I can get it into the format necessary for Kindle and what's the other one, Smashwords if necessary, because I've formatted enough of these things, prepared enough of them to get into new Kindle. Because anyone that's messed with CreateSpace or KDP, or trying to get your book accepted by Kindle,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to get the table of contents is usually the biggest bear. You've got to make sure you set the links correctly in the book, you link it
Yeah.
correctly to the appropriate. I can do all that because I've done it many times before. So I say I won't edit. This is not an editing service. This is just basic normal stuff there, where essentially I'm taking all the loose pieces and assembling them together and then submitting them on your behalf. I'm not creating your own account. You have control over everything. So that's the sort of thing that I've helped other authors do. But that's about it. I'm not a cover design. I'm not a formatter or anything, with respect of the Kindle stuff.
Yeah, I've been shopping for this stuff recently, so there's a lot of people out there, and I really think, I mean, Lindsay, I really think for my next book, I'm going to look at your guy, because one thing is he does, the one who did the Dragon's Blood series, is because he does a lot of stuff. For that one fee, he's not a one-stop shop, but he handles an awful lot of things. So he'll do your cover, he'll do a lot of your formatting, da-da-da-da-da, and then there's not as many people to hire. I'm also going to look, my editor, her business, she's recently expanded to include cover and interior design services, and she has a graphic designer she's brought on. So I'm going to contact her and say, put me in touch with your designer. I want to see her portfolio, find out what her prices are and stuff. And so that, in a way, that if that works out and she's a good designer and I feel comfortable with her, then I've got my editor and designer and formatter. I guess not the final formatter, but she'd do all the design work all in one place, and then just have to find a formatter. And there's a lot of formatters out there. There's, I know several people who do it. But I really think it's, if you don't have time, you got to make time. This is your baby. I mean, this is, if you're really serious about doing this as a career, and you really want to try to make a go of this, you got to treat it like a business, and you got to understand that there's just, you're going to have to set hours aside to do the work of a publisher, and you're going to have to find contractors, and you're going to do the work. If you want to do the work yourself, I mean, for formatting, a lot of people do that themselves, and I just, no. Computer stuff makes me crazy. So, as you guys have seen.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, there's nothing that makes me unglue faster than my computer not working when I have a deadline. Oh, God.
That's about 90% of my computer tech clients. So
yeah.
I can relate.
Yeah, so.
All right. Well, I think to answer my own question, too, my opinion would be, first off to say, this is kind of a first novel thing, or first couple novels. Usually you'll find people, and then the process will be much easier going forward. You'll have your editor, formatter just get booked and send things off to them. And yeah, I probably would actually, though, hire a virtual assistant before hiring any of these companies. I've actually worked with Zirtual, Zirtual, and it's like you pay like $25 an hour. You get 8 hours a month for $200 or something, and that's just one option. I never used them for anything like find cover designers, but I had one do some research on Sedona for me when I was doing a book set there, and so you're still paying, but it's way less than the thousands of dollars that you could be paying a company, and they can kind of be your point of contact. So it's just an option. I like the hands-on, and I want to do it myself, but not everybody is trying to make a career. Some people just want to publish their memoir, so they're probably not listening to this podcast, though, unless there were aliens in the memoir and it's got a science fiction bent. But Joe, did you want to maybe jump in? And I think you had a couple more mistakes you might want to share.
Sure. One of my favorite mistakes that I made that I learned a bit from. There was a brief period when I was I was high enough on the literary radar that a couple of agents came after me, and I had already published a couple of books, and I wasn't sure I really even wanted traditional publishing anymore. But I decided to give it a shot. It couldn't hurt. They wouldn't take away the books I had already written. Or at least if they asked to, then I would tell them no. So I started talking to them, and there was one lady who was very interested in my stuff, but she stopped being an agent and she switched jobs and handed me over to somebody else. And the new guy just treated me like a brand new, like not so much a brand new, like he got an email from somebody, would you be my agent, but he didn't really look over anything that she had said about me. He just sort of treated me from scratch. And what he said to me was, could you please send me what you're working on now so I can get an idea of what you're worth to me. And I said, okay, and I gave him the book that I had just finished writing, and I had not even read it yet. This was not even a rough draft. This was just, I had hit the end. Okay, here it is. So no proofreading whatsoever. And he gets this, and it turns out when an agent says, send me what you're working on now, what he means is, send me what you're trying to get published at this moment. Not the thing you're actually in the process of working on, but the thing you're in the process of shopping around. So I sent him something that I thought was good enough to hit the shelves. And it had all the homophone problems and bad grammar and double, repeated words. So that's an important thing. If you're looking for an agent and they say, what are you working on, you give them something that is polished, not something that you just finished. So yeah, he quickly stopped talking to me after that. So that's one of my my big mistakes.
Important.
Did he get to reigns? He got through the reigns of the kingdom, and that was it.
I think the one that he had a problem with was I used the word principal, and it's, there's principal, the guy who runs a school, and principal, oh, these are my principles, and I used them backwards twice, and he was like, well, this guy's an idiot. He thinks he's smart, but he's not. So yeah, that was his sticking point. He mentioned it in an email, and I was like, well, I didn't edit it yet, man. Silly me. He eventually gave me the name of an editor, too. Like, he was like, here you go, maybe after you get it edited. I was like, maybe not even then, sir.
It's only $6,000 for the editor, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was like, because he was an agent, and he's talking to people who work with the big six, so yeah, that not the best experience. I did not put my best foot forward in that interaction. And I have one more
I don't mean to
mistake
laugh at you, but yeah, I can visualize that quite easily.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything else, or should I continue on with one more that I made that I just found out about?
Oh, go ahead.
All right. My name on the cover is Joseph R. Lalo, and on the copyright and all that is Joseph R. Lalo. But when I was first publishing my stuff, there was no place for a middle initial, so I just was Joseph Lalo. So the cover says Joseph R. Lalo, and the store link just says Joseph Lalo. And this is not okay. It turns out this is not okay. Nobody called me on it, but I just put up the final manuscript for pre-order for a book that's releasing in 2 weeks, and they were like, "Oh, your name in the metadata doesn't match the name on the cover. That's not okay. You need to fix that." So I did, and now basically every place but Amazon, the author of all of my books is about to change from Joseph Lalo to Joseph R. Lalo. And I don't know what sort of consequences that's going to have. This is the sort of thing that in 2010 I should have realized I did it and fixed it then, but instead I waited 5 years. So, we'll tune in next week to find out if suddenly my author ranking vanishes.
Oh man, I think I would just change the covers instead of messing with possibly my author permanent page on Amazon and those things.
I haven't done it on Amazon yet, so the Amazon still has the two-name problem because they didn't yell at me, but Smashwords yelled at me, and they handle everyone else. So, yeah, we'll find out.
All right. Laura, did you have any other mistakes you've made in your short publishing career you'd like to share with us? Uh-oh, we're muted.
Sorry, I sneezed, so I put the mute button on and I forgot.
Oh, we appreciate it.
My career is short enough that, I'm sure there are plenty of mistakes I've made. I just haven't discovered them yet. So, come talk to me in a few months. I'm sure I can have all kinds of horrible stories, but the mistakes are just sort of sitting like snakes in the grass waiting to bite me on the ankles, and they just haven't, hatched yet. So,
well, maybe you can learn from our examples. I had one more on my list that I'll go ahead and share. Genre hopping is what I put down, and as I mentioned earlier, my contemporary romance / sweet mystery is not a big seller. I did have regular fans that went out and got it. And my thought on pen names used to be like, don't bother unless you're writing erotic here and children's stories over here, and probably shouldn't mix the two. But I'm thinking now, even within like science fiction and fantasy, I'll definitely notice that people will read the epic fantasy. Different people will read the contemporary fantasy. Different people might, if you tried space opera, I mean, you'd kind of think that all we're all the same. We all like these things. But I don't know why I would think that, because I'm not like that. I don't think I ever picked up a contemporary fantasy and set on Earth until I was going to write one for myself. And I thought, well, maybe I should read some of the bestsellers in the genre and kind of see what's going on. You'll find that even in science fiction and fantasy, the people that like dystopian some will maybe try the space opera, but some just won't jump over. So I think if you are going to start a new series in another subgenre, that you need to be committed to actually doing a series and doing like 3 books. Like I may go back to that contemporary mystery thing later. I have some more ideas to do more stories, but just because the first one didn't really sell, I was kind of, we'll see. But I do think that you need like at least 3 books in a series. And if you're going to totally jump genres, you got to think about if you look at somebody's Kindle page and they write in all sorts of genres, it's kind of a mess. So people that are just interested in, say, space opera, they're looking through all this and like, oh, you've got nonfiction books on how to publish to the Kindle, and over here you wrote a cozy romance, mystery, sweet, whatever. And I just want to see the space opera, and they may not go through and look at all your blurbs and things to find what they want. So I think these days it's pretty easy to have a pen name, so that's why I'm trying a new pen name, and it may be something you want to consider if you're switching genres enough that people, your regular crew won't follow you. And you don't have to be secret about it, too. You can always publicize your pen name. I'll send mine out to my list eventually, and you can. So everybody, that's like the best of both worlds, is you're not cluttering up your Amazon author page with a whole bunch of weird stuff that's not related to the genre you have a lot of stuff in. And I don't know. What do you guys think? Have you tried any different genres, or think you will?
I'm contemplating like a sci-fi type of thing there, but it's just still sitting in the contemplation stage there. I haven't really taken it any farther than that, but I don't know. I figured if I ever do something like that, I probably wouldn't do a pen name or anything, just because I'd be trying to encourage people that are fans from the other series to give the new one a try. But you never know.
Well, Joanna Penn, is my microphone on? Yeah. She mentioned that in one of the podcasts, and I bought one of her books, and she talks about how her business writing and her how-to books are all under Joanna Penn, but her fiction's under J.F. Penn. And, it's not like she's trying to hide that she does one or the other, but she brands them very differently. And, she's happy and smiling, and the background is white on the business page, and the fiction page, it's a darker background, and she looks more serious. And but yeah, somewhere down the list, there's a straight historical novel I want to write. There's a couple of political satires I want to write. It's far enough down the road, I haven't really thought about it yet. But yeah, it's a big thing. Someone who likes witches and ghosts and wizards is maybe not going to be as interested in, a Civil War historical novel, So.
It's not a bad idea, though, to have your own name, and then if you're going to change genres, just maybe like in my case, Jeffrey M. Poole, I could make it just J.M. Poole, or maybe Jeff M. Poole or something, or J. Poole, just so it's still me. But if I just stay consistent to the genre, if I change my name accordingly, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Well, and
you can always put it. I was going to say, you can always put it on your author page too. Be very blatant about it, or even in the back of the books. I also write under such and such name. I think it just cleans things up a little bit for the first impression people have of you. So.
Yeah.
I think Ian Banks does that. I think Ian Banks writes stuff, fantasy and sci-fi, and one of them is Ian Banks and one of them is Ian M. Banks. Just to cause a division between the two genres. I do all of my different series are in different genres, so my series hopping and my genre hopping have all the same problems. I have fantasy, sci-fi, steampunk, and satire, and not a tremendous amount of people are going to read all of those books. So I can't say that they all overlap.
That could solve your metadata problem. You have Joseph M. Lalo and Joseph Lalo.
Yeah, that could be it.
You already set it up.
Yeah.
And I don't think you necessarily have to have a pen name if you're going to jump around in different genres. It's something to maybe consider. And even if whether you're doing a pen name or not, it's just, like I was saying, you need to really realize it's going to take several books in the new genre before it's probably going to take off. You're going to get some crossover, but probably not as much as you would hope or think. There's definitely people, even in different even in like epic fantasy, like I have my Emperor's Edge series, and then I have Encrypted and Decrypted, which are in the same world. They cross paths. The characters come into the different storylines, but I have much fewer people that would go on and check out that other series. All they want is these one characters, and they want more of those characters, and screw everything else you write. I don't know why you can't just write 20 books with those characters. So just be realistic that it's going to be harder for you if you jump around, and it's probably going to be easier for your career if you stick to one genre, or like I said, if you're going to do a couple, make sure to write enough books that you can gain some momentum.
That's it for my list. Looking through it, we've covered everything that's on there. Not exactly in the order that I had it, but we still covered it all. So.
All right. Well, if anybody else wants to talk or say goodbye.
I think.
Thank you for letting me hop in. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was going to say, Laura, I think you need to go pour yourself a drink.
To calm down the CreateSpace hate.
No, I'm okay. I just, expensive lesson learned. There's just nothing you can do about it. You just have to kind of roll with it, and that's just how it goes. And, you just learn the lesson and don't do the same thing next time. That's all. So.
All right. What's the name of your new book? Is it out yet?
It's out in paperback. God
Right,
knows it should be out in
formatted,
Kindle sometime within the next 5 business days if they don't screw it up again. It's called Crushed, Crushed, which I've since discovered there's about 100,000 books named Crushed. I didn't check before I titled it, and oh well. But yeah, so that's book 2, and I'm kind of a little nervous about how it's going to be received. Hopefully the fans who like the first one in the series will still like the second one, but I won't believe that until I get some reviews. So that aren't, oh my God, this is awful. What the hell was she thinking? So.
All right. Well, I wish you good luck with that, and I totally hear you on the one-word titles. Maybe that should be on our list. I have one called Republic, and apparently some guy named Plato got that title a long time ago. So.
The first one is called Impervious, and the funny thing is there's a woman who put out a book called Impervious 10 days before I put mine out. And they're very different books. The covers are very different. They have different series names. They're mine, Impervious, is about a woman's situation. It's a descriptive thing for this woman's condition. This other book, this town, is called Impervious. But it was, she emailed me and she's like, she said, what are the odds? And I said, well, I'm glad you have a sense of humor about this since you put it out first. But, titles are not copyrightable. But yeah, it's kind of embarrassing when you have the same name that everybody else has, or even just one other person.
My last couple of them, I've deliberately made plays on other names, like for instance, Something Wicked This Way Comes. Well, I tweaked it a bit. Something Wyverian This Way Comes. I know darn well there's no other books by that title.
Yeah, yeah.
Next book coming out is a play off of A Penny for Your Thoughts. Well, this one is A Portal for Your Thoughts. So it's I like to Google it just to make sure no one else had that rare moment of creativity that I actually happen to have, and then put it in there. So I learned my lesson there. When I first won the Prophecy, $1.5 billion. Insurrection, yeah, I was out one there too. Amulet of Ariath, my third one, not so much. But then Lost City, I should have probably changed that to something different. But then I like the other ones. They're very unique. So someone searches for that book, they're only going to find mine.
My third book in the series I was calling Gods and Monsters. Knowing that other people had called books that, I had no idea just how many people had picked up that name. So now it's Gods and Swindlers, so which is still fairly accurate, but it's sort of changing the focus of the book. But yeah, it's there's no new original ideas. It's a sad thing.
Yeah. And you might want to look too, because I almost called my new series, I don't remember, something Honor by Fire or something like that, and I looked up what's out there, and the other titles are these male gay romances with like really man titty covers, and I was like, I don't want people finding that when they're looking for my book. Nothing wrong with those books, but it's just that's going to be like the next search result, and I was just like, I think not,
So there you go. So that's a piece of advice. Google what you'd like your book title to be. See what comes up.
Well, I did that with my series. In City of Eldritch, I found there was a video game or a role-play game or something that was calling itself City of Eldritch, and I looked to see if they were trademarked. I checked the federal trademark websites, and as far as I can tell, no. And I was like, okay, I'm going for it. So, we'll see. I'm sure, if I get really successful, I might get a letter from somebody saying, "You're using the name of our." So,
Yeah. Well,
but titles are
that's
not copyrightable. So,
right. But that is one other thing too I've seen, and I haven't done this one myself, but in fantasy and science fiction, I'll sometimes see new authors kind of shooting themselves in the foot by they'll have the name of their world, which, I know some of us have done that, but it's so impossible to spell. It's something you can't pronounce it with an apostrophe in the middle, and you can't pronounce the second half. And like, people got to be able to remember the name of your book to type it in, especially if you're like me and people can't spell your name. So give them a bone. Don't get too crazy on the title.
Yeah, I'm grappling with that right now. The NaNoWriMo novel that I just wrote. The first one's called Free Wrench, Free-Wrench, which is very easy and wasn't used at all. The second one I'm having trouble. I don't want to call it Free Wrench too. It would make it seem like a movie. And there's a prison in it called the Phylactery, which I was gonna name it that because it'd be appropriate to name the book after its centerpiece. But I don't think people are going to be able to spell phylactery off the top of their head, so I'm going to have to pick a different name than that.
I'll have to look it up. What does this mean? Oh, it's in Dungeons and Dragons they mention it. All right, well, I guess that's all I have. You guys got anything else? All right, well, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll have some guests in the future after the holidays, but in the meantime, we've been saying this for a while, but we are going to be on iTunes soon, really soon, and then, then we're going to have all sorts of people checking out our stuff. It'll be exciting for us, because right now we have like 7 views on our videos, so we're pretty stoked about that. In the future, we hope to be in more places, and we hope to have you find us. And you can visit our website at marketingsff.com. Thanks, and have a good holidays, or have a good year if you find this in 2017.
Bye-bye.